Download and upload more than ever before with an ultra-fast fiber connection. With 3 simple steps, you can be the one with an SLT fiber optic connection. Visit slt.lk.
Tonight, request to backtrack. International Commission of Jurists calls on President Maithripala Sirisena to retract his decision to resume executions. No talk of devolution. The UNP has not given any proposal for devolution of power to the Constitutional Council, says Prime Minister. Ready to topple? Sri Lanka Freedom Party determined to take over government if provincial polls are not held prior to May. SLPP wants the president to take over subject ministry. We are at risk. Sports Minister HARIN Fernando warns that Sri Lanka's ICC membership is at stake unless cricket elections are held no later than next Thursday. All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Thursday, the 14th of February 2019.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9 with Ndivaria Muwata and Mahesh Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome to First at 9 right here on Ada Derana 24. Good evening, Ndivaria, and happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's. You seem to celebrate.
Well, of course, everybody is celebrating. Most of them are celebrating, but not in the nonsense kind of way. But, you know, it's a very special day for
Love is for every day.
Loved, yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
Anyways, we have a good story also later on in the bulletin with regard to Valentine's Day.
Certainly. I think that will be quite heartwarming to all of you. We'll bring that story later on, as you said. We begin with your top story making news tonight. Well, Counsel S. Velapilli, who went to Dubai to represent artist Amal Pereira and his son Nadimal Pereira, who were arrested recently, along with underworld kingpin Markandure Madhush, met them at the detention center of the Dubai police station today. Speaking to Ada Derana 24, Counsel Velapilli said that he had an initial discussion with the officer in charge of the detention center, who had informed that blood samples had been taken from all suspects during 2 occasions.
Now, it was reported earlier that the first batch of blood samples from the 31 suspects, including Markandure Madhush, artist Amal Pereira and Ryan Van Rooyen, were confirmed drug positive. However, Counsel Velapilli has been informed that charges against the suspects will only be prepared by the Public Prosecution Department of Dubai once they receive the final reports related to the second batch of blood samples.
Well, President Maithripala Sirisena reiterated that stern legal action should be taken against all who are responsible for illegal and illicit drug trafficking and environmental destruction. The head of state made the remark addressing the environmental summit of the Anuradhapura district today.
The day before yesterday, a Deputy Inspector of Police of the President's Security Division was arrested along with his wife, who is also a Deputy Inspector of Police. So don't think about anybody's title or position when it comes to activities related to illicit drug and environmental destruction. The law must strictly be implemented on them. When it comes to waste management, we use scientific and technological methods which get rid of the smell, so locals don't have to be concerned about the issue. Such projects are in fact beneficial for the area where the projects are implemented. I chose the Minister of Environment after being elected as the President because I saw the environmental downfall at the time. All institutions that give permits for this downfall should be held responsible. We allow sand mining activities without further inquiry. Although there are limitations imposed through these permits, these miners tend to disregard them. This is why we must look into this issue more closely.
President Sirisena then visited the sacred Jayashree Mahabodhi in Anuradhapura. The head of state also called on the chief prelate of Atamasthana, Most Venerable Pallegama Sirinivasa Thera.
The International Commission of Jurists called on President Maithripala Sirisena to retract his pronouncement that executions would resume in the country, notwithstanding a moratorium on capital punishment. This international body raises concern in a backdrop where President Sirisena re-insisted in Parliament last week that the death penalty will be implemented on the imprisoned drug traffickers within 2 months.
President Maithripala Sirisena has been stressing on implementing the death penalty over a period of time at many locations, including the Parliament. He vowed to resume executions of those convicted of drug offences as early as the next 2 months. In such a backdrop, International Commission of Jurists urged President Sirisena to retract his pronouncement that executions would resume in the country, notwithstanding a moratorium on capital punishment. The Asia-Pacific Director of Commission of Jurists, Frederick Rowski, in a recent statement said that, quote, resuming executions would be an egregious violation of Sri Lanka's obligations under international human rights law, a serious threat to human rights in the country, and it would be inconsistent with the global trend towards the abolition of the death penalty, unquote. The statement goes on to say that ICJ considers any resumption of executions in Sri Lanka as constituting a violation of international law and an appalling disregard for the international human rights system as a whole. The international body also urges Sri Lanka to immediately ratify the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which obligates state parties to take all necessary measures to abolish the death penalty.
Well, Prime Minister RANIL WICKREMESINGHE today revealed that the United National Party has not made any proposal to the constitutional making process regarding devolution of power. He went on to emphasize that the government's only goal is to find a political solution that will ensure unity among all communities of the country.
We are currently discussing on a political solution, but we still don't have a draft of the proposed constitution. Some allege that we are trying to divide the country through the devolution of power. The UNP has never given any proposal regarding the devolution of power during the constitutional making process. What we are discussing is the all-party convention proposed by opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa during his tenure as the president. During his tenure, this convention was considered good, but during our tenure of reconciliation, the document becomes a bad one. This is why they should accuse Rajapaksa of dividing the country and not any of us. We will accept it if everybody else agrees to the document. All we want is a political solution which would allow all of us to live in peace.
A progress review meeting on housing resettlement and development projects in the north was also held under the patronage of Prime Minister RANIL WICKREMESINGHE in Jaffna.
There is a ban on kite that has been imposed by the Air Force, saying that it's interfering with flight movements. I see kites flying in Gulf-Face, just 500 meters from the Air Force headquarters.
Thank you, Honorable Sumantran. Today is the Valentine's Day, so the Colombo people have come with lot of love. And so let us really thank them for what they have done and the decisions taken today. I think Flying Beach should have a Jaffna Kites Festival.
Well, UPA parliamentarian SP DISSANAYAKE lamented the Constitutional Council today, claiming that it has even started disregarding the recommendations by President Maithripala Sirisena. Speaking at a media briefing in Colombo, the parliamentarian also went on to voice against the postponement of the provincial council election. Today, the Constitutional Council, which is led by the Speaker of the Parliament, directly asked the Attorney General for recommendations when appointing judges for the Council. This is very wrong because the Attorney General should send the recommendation through the President. By now, the Constitutional Council has come to the point of refusing the recommendations of the President. So some say that the Provincial Council elections will be held before May. If they won't hold it before May, that means elections will not be held at all. If that happens, we are ready to topple this government, take the power into our hands, hold provincial council elections and then go for a presidential election. We have several strong candidates. We have Maithripala, Gotabaya, Basil, Chamal and Dinesh. But the UNP doesn't have anyone apart from RANIL WICKREMESINGHE.
ඉන්නේ රනිල් විතරයි.
We have no issues at all. A decision will be taken by the broader alliance which encompasses all the parties. We are sure opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and President Maithripala Sirisena will take a good decision.
මහින්දයි මෛත්‍රී එකතු වෙලා ඒ තීන්දුව ගන්නේ.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna calls on President Maithripala Sirisena to take over the Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Government temporarily in order to hold the Provincial Council election in due time. Meanwhile, upon the invitation of former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa declared open the new office of the organisation, ELIYA, today.
The new office of the organisation ELIYA, which is located in Kirulapone, was declared open by the opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa today. The event saw the participation of many politicians, including the national organiser of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa. Meanwhile, addressing a media briefing in Colombo, UPFA parliamentarian Dr. Ramesh Patirana made a request to the president with regard to the provincial council election.
We just need minor changes to the Act in order to hold the elections according to the previous electoral system, and we cannot expect the subject minister of the UNP-led government to do the necessary amendments. So the best alternative we have is to propose the president on taking over the ministerial position of provincial councils and local government temporarily to suggest the relevant amendment to the parliament and to the cabinet. All parties have agreed on this particular amendment in order to hold the election according to the previous electoral system. As per the constitution, the presidential election is supposed to be held on a Saturday, so the presidential election should definitely be held before the 7th of December this year. We clearly state that only a candidate representing the SLPP who will make sure to strengthen the national economy will become the president of the country.
Chairman of the Election Commission, Mahinda DESHAPRIYA, recognizes the public's preference as the foundation for the country's governing power. DESHAPRIYA was speaking at an event held in Colombo today and added that this prominence for the public must be depicted through free, fair and punctual elections.
An event marking the 30-year anniversary of PAFREL was organised today with the participation of a large number of civil activists and politicians. During the event, media networks were also felicitated for their service.
Network Private Limited.
Holding elections at the due time is a right of the public that should be guaranteed. I recognize it as a must. We hope that elections will be held on time. The foundation of a country's governing power should be the preference of public, and that preference should be depicted through free and fair and punctual elections. There is no use of an election being fair and free if it is not held at the right time. I alone am not the Elections Commission. I am just one member of the council, which comprises of 3 members. There is no argument on what election should be held first. It is the provincial council election that should be held. We cannot hold a presidential election until the 10th of November. We will fight for a provincial council election until the 10th, and I will not resign at any time before that.
Well, we take a short commercial break now. After this, we'll talk to one of Sri Lanka's leading industrialists on promoting exports and local production. Do stay with us on First at 9.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Welcome back everyone, on to business news now. Nature's Beauty Creation Limited won the Gold Award in the large-scale category at the very first Sri Lanka Corporate Health and Productivity Award ceremony held at the BMICH yesterday. The ceremony was organized by the Chamber of Young Entrepreneurs in collaboration with Japan's external trade organization to improve health and well-being of employees by launching a new internationally accredited award scheme.
Well, as we all know, Nature's Secrets is the largest and leading manufacturer in herbal cosmetics in Sri Lanka. And of course, these accolades are not anything new to Nature's Beauty Creations. To discuss more on this and the industry, we've invited to the studios the chairman and the managing director of Nature's Beauty Creations, Nature's Secrets, Mr. Samantha Kumarasinghe. Good evening and welcome to First Tonight. And congratulations.
Thank you very much. And it's a good opportunity to be here in your new studio as well.
Certainly.
Beautiful.
We have a state-of-the-art studio, and I think, like I said, these accolades are nothing new to Nature's Secrets, but I think every year Nature's Secrets has been expanding from where it was several years ago. Let's just very quickly touch on the award scheme and what this award really means to you.
This award is actually about the well-being of employees. It's called this award is called Health and Productivity Awards.
Right.
But it is considering the employee health and well-being.
Right.
That is how they award they measure those. This is done by JETRO of Japan in collaboration with Young Lankan Entrepreneurs, that is COIL.
Right.
But these standards they bring from Japan, and they see whether those standards are done in Sri Lanka. Now, we have not been aware of these standards that JETRO has. But from the inception of our company from 2008, we have been adopting certain policies about employee welfare and well-being. So that is what gave us this opportunity of winning this gold award.
A local company maintaining global standards.
Yes,
I think this is something you have also stressed during this past decade since Nature's Secrets has been established. Mr. Kumarasinghe, I'd also like to talk a little about the industry. You're quite vocal about support that government has to give to local industries, but how has this changed over the years? Do you see any positivity coming your way?
I think particularly these government policies, basically they are trying to go for this global economic policies. They are trying to implement them without adjusting them for Sri Lankan requirement. For instance, if you try to get these neoliberal economic policies and try to implement that in Sri Lanka without looking at how the Sri Lankan industries can grow, then it will only help the global corporations to invade in Sri Lankan markets. And what will happen is Sri Lankan industry will go down year by year. That is wrong. So you cannot bring these American policies or US, other Western policies in economic policies and implement them in Sri Lanka. It has to be adjusted to our requirement. Now, say you can go to Harvard Business School and learn, but you can't bring a Harvard professor and tell him to run my business. So if you try to give it to either David Ricardo, David Hausman, or Ricardo Hausman, or this Harvard Business Center cannot develop economic policies for Sri Lanka.
When you talk about that too, the government continues to say that through their budgets they have been supporting funds, giving out certain schemes to support and uplift our SMEs and our industries. But so far, do you see any work being done, or is there anything you expect from the upcoming budget?
Government says so many things, but the thing is, you can see what is happening in the grassroots levels. Now, if you look at today, there is a big crunch in the credit, in the trade credit. So our distributors can't find money to pay us. So likewise, the shopkeepers don't have enough money to pay the distributors. So that is becoming a vicious cycle, and then we have to cut down sales. So it hits our bottom line. So that is all over if each and every sector of the business is affected that way.
Right.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, if I just focus on your business, which is a local brought-in business, and currently with the tourism industry and Sri Lanka being open into the world markets, there is a lot of competition in the health and beauty section.
Well-being.
Yeah, the well-being section in this country. I mean, wherever you go, there are spas, there are centers which provide these kinds of services. So as a local business, what are the challenges that you face in terms of going forward? What exactly would be your future business model?
Before coming to my business model, I just like to elaborate on something that you said about this spas and so many things coming up. You know, some people believe that Sri Lanka is too small to run industries and we should be a service country. But that is wrong thinking. If you look at today, you have 24 hours spas all over the Ayurvedic spas. I really don't know what is happening inside those places. But that is not what we want. We want, with that, a country can't develop. Can you develop a country by having spas in every corner? No. But there has to be certain industries that can go to the global market. Then those industries have to be supported by the government. If you take Korea, China, any country that developed, the industry has developed. Today we have a Ministry for Industry and Commerce. As industrialists, we have been screaming for, asking for a separate minister for industry, because industry and commerce compete with each other. And for instance, sometimes if when you have one minister, he has to pay more attention to the needs of the people. That means when there are shortage of something, if price goes up or something, they have to bring either rice or any other commodity. But how can he concentrate on industry now? I think this mistake was done in 2012 by combining industry and commerce, but still it continues. That is a major problem for, at least now, the government should, because they have hit the bottom more or less, and they are telling us, okay, export, increase export, they are trying to control so many imports, but it's too late. And also, without supporting the industry, without paying attention to that aspect, because industry is suffering a lot because we have labor problems, labor shortages, so many things. Right. Now interest rates have gone up from about 7% in 2014, now it's about 13–14%. So how can industries
a local brand that has gone global, but there are also again smaller industries. You've been a strong voice to these smaller companies that should go beyond our shores. Again, in terms of developing a brand, in diversifying, in going out to the markets, what do we need? We talk about free trade agreements, Mr. Kumarasinghe, but you've been quite vocal again about the agreement, the FTA we have with India, saying that we had not prepared enough to in inking that agreement. But again, we're talking about the Singapore FTA, that's quite controversial to date, and moving into new FTAs. But what should we really focus on when it comes to your sector?
Indian FTA was actually signed in 1998, and that time you can say we were not prepared. We learned a bitter lesson. But from that we should learn something, and we should be careful when we sign other agreements. But that has not been done. The Singaporean agreement was done, actually, they said they had so many consultations. But what do you mean by consultation? We are invited for a meeting. What we say is not even minuted in the minutes. And they say, okay, the industries were consulted. That is not the case. The industries have to be properly consulted, and what we want we don't want big favors from governments, but at least we should have equal playing field. And if another country has so many regulations in taking a product into that country, we also should have the same regulations in our country. Without that, if we have no regulations, and if we sign an agreement, we can't go because of other regulations, but they can come. This is the problem. Right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumarasinghe, for your time here at our studios, and congratulations once again to the new award that Nature's Secrets has just been awarded.
Thank you.
Well, we all know that today is Valentine's Day, as we did mention at the beginning of the bulletin, and many are celebrating the day in their own way all around the world. This is why today gives us the opportunity to talk about one of the most inspiring love stories that moved us. This is a story from here in Sri Lanka.
Now, the story is about Jagath Susantha and Anoma Chandani from Suryawava. They took their marriage vows 17 years ago, and Susantha told us how life ahead looked so promising and bright for them.
But it hadn't taken much time for tragedy to take over their lives. 2 months into their marriage, Anoma became ill, and it wasn't long before they knew the reason.
She was suffering from a rare neurological disorder which eventually made her unable to move or walk. Over 17 years, any best doctor they came across had told Jagath how Anoma could not be cured. But Jagath refused to give up hope. He told us about his strong belief that one day she will walk and move just like how she used to many years ago. This is why until today he continues to look for any help that could help her.
Well, Jagath is currently unable to be employed anywhere as taking care of his wife consumes all his hours. He also says that he will not leave Anoma's side as that was his promise to her. Jagath's only request from us was to help him find someone who can cure his wife. And this is why telling you the story is so important to us here at First at 9.
Thanks.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
In news overseas, British Prime Minister Theresa May could face another defeat in Parliament today over her plan to renegotiate the Brexit deal, undermining her pledge to the European Union that with changes she can get the agreement approved. Today's symbolic vote is seen by many or May's team as little more than a rubber stamp of her plan to secure changes to the divorce deal with the EU, giving her more time to satisfy lawmakers' concerns over one part of it, that is the Irish backdrop.
Sports news now. Minister of Sports HARIN Fernando says that the ICC membership status of Sri Lanka is at the risk of being cancelled if the country fails to hold the election on the 21st of February. Meanwhile, views over the cricket elections were also aired during the SLFP media briefing today.
My personal opinion is that nominations of the individuals that were rejected have enough reasons to step to the court. Government is politicizing the cricket election. No matter what games they play, the group that has our support will win on the 21st.
Meanwhile, Minister of Sports HARIN Fernando also expressed views over the election of the local cricket governing body.
I will not talk much about the SLC election. I have never poked fingers into this matter. According to the law, an appeals committee should be appointed to oversee an election to avoid any political interference. I have to work according to the report this committee compiles, because if not, the only opinion left is to cancel the election and appoint an interim committee according to provisions under Selection 32. If we take more time to hold the election, we are at the risk of being cancelled from the ICC's membership.
Well, that's all from us here at First at 9. Do log on to www.otherderana.lk for the very latest and follow us on YouTube and our other social media sites. I'm Indipariya Mwata.
And I'm Mahesh Johnny. Thank you for making us a part of your evening. Good night.